You have an extra one of those?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that. That's one more set of, I just, yeah, want to do that, and then I'll just, oh wait, hold on. I'll give you- Thank you.
This particular application is for area variances. I believe that you met Mr. Skepa along with Mr. Bella back on May 26, 2022, relative to Mr. Skepa seeking area variances to build a staircase in the west side yard setback of 4 Pennsylvania Court, along with enlarging an existing deck on this, what would be the first livable floor of the home in the rear yard. Along with, I believe, also a rear yard variance was requested, along with a side yard setback variance. After that hearing, there was opposition from the adjoining neighbor to the west, the Chuck Close house, right at the end of Pennsylvania Avenue and at the beach along Pennsylvania Court. As a result of that hearing and further conversations my client Ed Skepa had with Mr. Sager, S-A-G-E-R, I believe, who is the owner, along with his wife Annie, of the house to the west of the Skepas. Mr. Skepa had the drawings that you see before you drawn by Mr. Bella. I'll have Mr. Skepa testify as to 2 critical points, one of which is the reasoning for the requested variances, and the second is as to the conversation he had with Mr. Skepa that resulted in the drawings that you have before you. You may remember that initially what was proposed during the hearing of May 26th, Mr. Skepa was going to have a staircase that ran all the way from the rear yard, stopping at the deck, and then continuing along the side of the house to a rooftop deck. As a result of the conversations Mr. Skepa had with Mr. Sager, he removed the staircase that ran from the deck to the roof, leaving just the staircase that you see before you in the side yard and rear yard setback. The deck is increasing by 3 feet from approximately 10 feet in depth now, running from the house towards the rear yard, to 13 feet 2 inches. The staircase will run from basically a platform at the house and then down into the rear yard in the side yard, leaving us to request the same variance that would have been requested before, given the staircase going all the way to the roof, and that's a variance from the 5-foot required side yard setback to 1 feet 6 inches to accommodate the stairs. We'll also be asking for a variance for the staircase that's 3.6 feet from the rear yard setback. My understanding, given paperwork that I've seen that was submitted by Mr. Sager's attorney, Mr. Solomon, the key objection to what was proposed before, at least this is my understanding, I'm sure Bob will tell me differently when he gets up, if it is in fact different from what my understanding is the potential invasion of privacy as a result of the location of the staircase in the rear yard and side yard setback running along the Sager property. What I did to address this both with my client and for myself, for the purposes of addressing the objection and talking to you, I took 36 photographs of the area, and that's one of the documents that I submitted to you just now. I'd like to quickly, for the sake of both the record and for some clarity as to what's been photographed there, just run through the photographs quickly. And so they're in there, I think all of ours, mine and even the one that I gave Mr. Solomon, are all in the same order. The first photograph that you see is a photograph of the actual deck with my back ostensibly to the kitchen. The kitchen enters the rear yard deck by a folding door that runs the span of the entry. What's significant about that is that the folding door actually takes up space of the deck when the folding door is open. You can see the small table that is there, that was there when I visited, and I think that's been there since the beginning of this deck. The second picture you see is the doors that I just described to you that lead directly into the kitchen. The third picture, you see Mr. Skepper himself. I don't know if he intended to be in the picture, but I told him it gave us a sense of scale, along with the table, as to the size of the deck. I'll let Mr. Skepper testify as to why he's seeking to enlarge the deck. It obviously has to do with the size of the deck, but I'll let him talk about that. The next picture is of the side yard as it looks with my back to Pennsylvania Court facing the beach. You can see the deck in the left center of the photograph and the stairs leading from the deck down into the rear yard from that perspective. Again, the next picture, 5, is the same picture, just I've stepped back a little bit so you can see that you can access the rear yard by walking underneath the deck. So even with the staircase built in the side yard setback, where we've proposed it in the plans that you have before you, you can still, or the fire department or anyone else can still access the rear yard by walking along the western side yard and just walking straight underneath the deck into the rear yard. And then you see the opening in the next photograph even larger, wherein you can even see the pool from the side yard. Next photograph is me standing in the eastern part of the backyard looking at the existing deck and the existing staircase.
Which picture is that, please?
You see the pool,
Right here.
Are we all on the same page? Yeah. And then the next is a similar picture, just with me stepping back a little bit.
Right.
And you can see the Sagers' home from there, those trees which are actually dying. And then the next picture is from a different perspective, which would ostensibly be where the new staircase would just about end in the rear yard. So I'm standing with the beach behind me, close to the property line, looking up at the existing staircase and deck. The next photograph is the rear easterly side of the Sager home, where you see that screening, and that is clearly, based upon what I've read so far, the concern, the issue that the Sagers have with the possible proposed staircase that we're discussing now. This photograph is actually taken from the existing staircase. The next photograph, again, a different perspective of the same thing. This is a photograph that was taken by me on a ladder in the proximity of the proposed base of the staircase. Now, those trees will be eliminated not only because we propose to have the staircase there, but also because they're dying. But even if you take away the trees, you're really not seeing much of anything. It was a beautiful sunny day, and you're not seeing it into anybody's bedroom. And this is another photograph that I took even a couple of steps back, not even where the higher points of the staircase would be, wherein I actually took a picture, of the balcony.
Which picture is that, please?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Acevedo.
This one.
It's this. So I think those are the most significant pictures, but then I've taken several other pictures to demonstrate a couple of things. One of which, you'll see the next photograph, is the house to the east of the Skepas, owned by a Mr. Jernsky. I think he submitted a letter in support of my client's application for the variances to the zoning board. Multiple decks and clearly consistent with what even my client's proposing. My client's proposing to enlarge a deck in which there are very, very large decks, both to his east and his west. So it's clearly within the character of the neighborhood. The next photograph is actually from the interior of my client's house, and a window looking down on his easterly neighbor's backyard. And he generally has a blind there, but he was opening it up for me just to say, look, you know, we live on top of each other here. We generally don't have, not generally, they don't have any privacy issues. If they want to address privacy issues, they lower their blinds. And you can see backyards. Go ahead.
Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry. So the picture showing the open pool, that pool is the next door neighbor's pool?
Right. Well, you'll see as I go, you're going to see just the opposite from the opposite side. That's from,
Correct, but
I'm looking east.
That's next door, though.
That's not the house that's objected, that's the house in support immediately to the east.
Right.
I took the photograph just to get a sense of the neighborhood. The next photograph, which is kind of difficult to figure out at first glance what you're looking at, is Mr. Skepa's kitchen window with the blind drawn up, looking directly at the screening that is on the easterly side of the Sager home, where that same window is that has.
It's looking west. That's where the
Exactly.
staircase would be coming up in this location?
Well, yeah, on that west side, but not to this point.
Not to this point.
No, it would be just
forward.
south of the platform would be just south, and then you walk down the stairs. And again, the next picture is a somewhat similar picture again. In fact, I can't even see the forest from the trees in this particular photograph, but it's in the same general area. And the same with the next picture. The next picture, again, we're looking at the easterly house just to give a sense of all the decks and the views from one house to the other. And the next photograph, the same thing. You want to hold that thought, Ed? I'll leave it for you to address. The next photograph, Commissioner Acevedo. Now we're looking at the Sager yard to the west. And that's taken from the perspective of an upstairs deck at the Skepa home. You can see the umbrella of the table in the lower deck, just in the lower left-hand corner. The next picture is the same, virtually the same. Then I took a whole host of photographs because I was curious as to this concept of privacy relative to these homes, given the fact that they live on a public beach. And so I took photographs from the perspective of going up the ramp toward the walkover that allows you to access the beach. So that's what the first picture is. And then I'm moving up the ramp in the next picture, looking at the home. And then it just continues from there to the point where I'm on the walkover, well, you know, above the dune and almost on the beach. And I'm still on the walkover, and I still can take a clear shot of all the homes, gives you some idea of the three homes. but it also gives you an idea of how open they are to the public and to anybody who cares to look, which, you know, for those people who live there, you know, I'm going to make the assumption that they respect each other's privacy. I think even the homeowner to the east wrote that in his letter. And this photograph, again, is from the beach. It's just zoomed in to look at the window that's immediately east of that or left of that screen that you see. That's the subject area that the Sagers are concerned with.
The staircase be in front of the window there, or
The staircase, the
past
the
that
platform, if you look at the plans, the platform for the staircase to go down would be right outside that screen.
okay.
Then you walk a little bit, you're still on the platform, and now you're descending. So that's why I took the ladder and put the ladder up along the property line with significant height from I think it was two different perspectives. One where I estimated where the staircase would end, and the other one a little further back, right? So the staircase, I mean, it's needless to say, but the staircase is not, you know, level across, right? The staircase is descending and rising. So I'm going to respectfully submit to you that there is no invasion of privacy going up and down the staircase. First of all, if going down the staircase, you're probably looking down, I would hope. But coming up, even though you're looking forward and the house is right there, you can't see it given the fact that, you know, as you're rising, you're coming closer to the screen. That's why I took the photographs from the perspective of the ladder. Here's another beach photograph, probably with a little more clarity, very close to the homes, to give you an impression of the size of the Skepa deck relative to the size of the Sager deck. And also to the fact that, you know, if you wanted to try to take a look in the window, you could do it from the beach. The same with the next picture, more or less the same. And the next picture is, again, a zoom in on the window. And then I took a picture of the Easterly house and the Skepa house from that same perspective. And then just of the Sager, the Skepa house from that same beach perspective. And the rest of the photographs are from the beach perspective and the ramp, the walkover perspective, accessing the beach of Pennsylvania. So I wanted to get those in the record to try to give you some idea of what exactly it is we're talking about when we talk about the Skepa home, the Sager home, where the stairs are now, where the stairs are proposed to be, the size of the various decks. I would respectfully submit that number one, what's being proposed is not outside the character of the neighborhood. We've had plenty, even though this is District M, we've had plenty of homes over the last 10 years which have sought to build staircases in side yards. I know some of them may have been a result of FEMA compliant issues with elevated houses, but we've seen quite a number of staircases in the side yards. We've also seen several that have staircases in both side yards in the West End that are very close to the property line. The second is, and perhaps most importantly, first and foremost, is there's no detriment to the neighbors. And I hope the photographs demonstrate that. And given the location of the actual plans proposed and the location of the stairs with the platform and the descending stairs into the rear yard, even without those trees there, you can't see into that window going up the stairs because you're getting closer and the screen is enough of a block. Besides that, unless it's nighttime and the lights are on, it's very difficult to see in any of those windows, whether it's my client's home or the Sager home. I also would submit that the variance that's being requested is not substantial. It's 3 feet addition to the deck. It's moving the stairs over. Yes, it takes up a bit of the side yard, but the side yard still allows for access underneath the deck into the rear yard. I don't believe they're substantial. I think more has been made of them than is reasonable, especially in terms of what the detriment might be to the westerly neighbor. Is there an alternative method to achieve the goals that the applicant is making? So this is something that Mr. Skepper will testify about further in a moment or two. But number one, the point of increasing the size of the deck is to allow for a larger dinner party. And when I say a larger dinner party, I'm not talking a gala event. I'm talking about Mr. Skepper and his wife Beth, along with their 2 children, one being 20 now, the other one being 15, who live at home, and Mr. Skepper's elderly parents, who frequent the premises and may actually one day live at the premises. Mrs. Skepper Sr., Ed's mother, is on oxygen, and what they would like to do is accommodate the whole family sitting at the dining room table on the deck. That's number one. That's one of the goals of what's being proposed. The second goal is to maintain the stairs into the rear yard to allow access from the kitchen down into the rear yard, to allow access to and from the deck to the rear yard, much like they have now. So putting the stairs in the side yard setback allows for the widening of the deck, and then adding the 3 feet allows for the extension, the further extension into the rear yard of the deck. But that's ostensibly what the Skeppers are trying to achieve here. That, if you want to call that a hardship, that's the hardship, is that they can't get the whole family to eat dinner on the deck. And I think I've addressed all of the criteria that the board would need to consider, right? So it's the health, safety, and welfare of the community, of the neighborhood specifically, weighed against the benefits sought to be achieved by the applicant. And when you address the 5 factors, I think it's clear that the health, safety, and welfare of the community is not jeopardized in any way, specifically the neighbor, I mean, that's who we're really talking about, is not jeopardized in any way, shape, or form by this proposed staircase and deck. And therefore, I respectfully ask that you grant these variances. I'll let Mr. Skepper testify now as to the points that I've alluded to before, along with this photograph that he wants to discuss. Mr. Skepper. This was the photograph.
Good evening, Mr. Skepper.
Hi.
Just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Edward Shepa, 4 Pennsylvania Court, Long Beach. So, you know, what Dennis said is definitely true. My mom's on oxygen. You know, she comes up the 1 flight of stairs to get to the first floor, and that's it. We don't, you know, really use the roof deck at this point. That's why on discussion with the Sagers, I decided if that was an issue that they had with the stairs going all the way up to the roof, I'd be fine with taking that out, because what I really need and what I really want is just to be able to sit outside and have dinner. I mean, it's a beautiful view of the ocean. I'd like to be able to use the house. You know, some of the drawings that were submitted by an architect for the Sagers, which are probably in the record there, are just not accurate. Like, they say you could fit 6 people on our present deck. I think the pictures that Dennis took show you could barely fit 4 people on that deck. You know, and if you look at one of those pictures, you'll see that the umbrella, that's a normal size market umbrella, overhangs the deck. It doesn't even fit on the deck. You know, it's overhanging towards the pool. So, you know, the deck's just not functional at all, really, for my family, especially as we get older. You know, that's pretty much what it comes down to. it's not a matter, it's just a matter of being able to sit outside and eat. You know, for instance, this last Saturday was a beautiful weekend. We ate in the dining room for exactly those reasons, instead of sitting on the deck. So that's why I want to do it, you know? It's simple.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
There's been multiple, I was a little confused by the letter that Annie Sager wrote, because there's been after the last time we met, you'd recommended that we talked about it. I took that extraordinarily seriously, and I wanted to work out some sort of compromise that they could be happy with, because, you know, we're neighbors, and, you know, I wanted them to feel comfortable with it. So basically, that's how, you know, basically Mr. Sager took me around the neighborhood and gave me very good suggestions in his opinion on how to do this. One of which was to put a spiral galvanized steel staircase off the kitchen deck going up to the roof deck. So I said, you know, listen, life's a compromise. I'm willing to work with them. This is what we can do. I had my architect redraw up the plans, which is essentially the plans you have now. If you notice, there's no spiral staircase there. Because when my wife and I, Beth, went up to the roof and looked down, I mean, you know, when we originally planned for the stairs going up, would have been safe. Having a spiral staircase 2 stories that high up, I didn't feel was a safe situation. So I drew plans up, spend more money to compromise with the Sagers, and then they come back with the privacy issue. And, you know, that's essentially, you know, at that point I was like, well, you know, I don't have a choice. I mean, these are the plans I drew up. I wasn't going to redraw them up again and then find another issue that I'd have to redraw them a 3rd time. That's why the platform off the kitchen deck is the way it is, was because initially when drawn up, there was supposed to be a spiral staircase there, which I just had to leave it.
Would a spiral staircase from the deck down to the base?
From the kitchen to the roof.
No, not the second one. Would this plan with a spiral staircase be less intrusive for them? I wondered, I was actually thinking that before you brought it up.
Well, his initial concern, I don't know if you remember from the last meeting, was the 2 houses were too close and there was a fire hazard.
Well, yeah, they're close anyway, but yeah.
Right, exactly. So, you know, he said, well, why don't you put a spiral staircase because it looks nicer. So he was concerned about the aesthetics of my house. And he wanted to put it off the kitchen deck going up to the roof deck. So that would have been a 2-flight spiral staircase going
Yeah,
up.
yes, I understand that part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, but
sorry.
in this plan where you have a single flight stairs, how would that look with a spiral staircase? I'm just saying it would take up a smaller footprint. That's all I'm thinking.
Oh, well, it would take up, you know better than me, but I believe it takes up at least a 5-foot square footprint.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Is that true?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just,
and it's not, you know, with the pool, I'd rather not have a spiral staircase made out of steel, going even from the ground floor to the first floor.
okay.
Yeah.
Also, if I could just ask you a question on the record, was what's been presented in the drawing to the zoning board this evening a result of an agreement that you had with Mr. Sager?
100% correct.
Because I don't think you made that clear when you.
Oh, I'm a little nervous being
That's
in
okay.
front of the board. Excuse me.
So you're saying Mr. Sager has agreed to the plan
So-
that has
so-
been submitted with the single
Well,
staircase?
I need to qualify that, or maybe Mr. Skepa should. So they had a discussion, they came to an agreement, Mr. Sager and Mr. Skepa, to the point where he asked Mr. Bella to write the new plans pursuant to the agreement he reached with Mr. Sager. The plans were drawn, and then he got an email saying on second thought and reflection, we don't want to do that.
I have a question before we hear what the other side has to say about it. In the new plan, you have a straight run of stairs, and then you show an 8'7" platform in depth. Now, instead, you know, the stair is 3'6" wide. why would you need, you know,
So that's what I was alluding to with Mr. Walden, was these plans were drawn up initially for a spiral staircase to sit in that corner.
I see, okay.
So that would require 5 feet. And then you need another, like,
Okay,
3
so-
feet to make the turn to go down the stairs to the
Right,
first
so
floor.
you would not need the 8'7" deep platform where the stair
But I
lands.
couldn't use the 3'6" either, for the simple reason that of the way the doors open. If you remember the picture with the doors open about 3 feet wide
Right.
and stack all the way to that side. So you
Okay.
wouldn't be able to get
Yeah,
around.
that
to
still
down.
wouldn't preclude a smaller platform.
You could just bring the platform back toward the stairs, toward the steps, is what you're saying. Is that Mike? Right, Mike? Platform should be
I'm taking
in
the
the-
plan that you're showing right here.
In the reflection of
And
the
at the
door.
top of the stairs, instead of an 8'7" platform, why not a 4-foot platform?
Hold on a second. Hold on. So here, we're looking at this. Right, I understand exactly what you're saying, Commissioner Leonetti. It's more important than my client does.
Still may not be acceptable, but I'm
Right, so I think one of the issues, what Mr. Seppa is highlighting, is if you now have the kitchen doors open, and they open from right to left, and they come out because it's a folding door, comes out 3 feet.
But you'd have to be able to get around these doors to get down. Yeah, I mean, it still accomplishes the goals. What I'm- Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
If you lost that, it would
Yeah.
mean anything.
I don't know how that would
Yeah.
change with A. But there's a big screen on the neighbor's property anyway. Yeah. Okay.
So can I, and I apologize for being late. Can I, if your intention's to widen the deck to where the stairs currently are, and you're asking for right now a rear and a side variance, why not considering just asking for a rear variance, move the stairs back from where it is now, and have it the exact same stair layout you have now, but from a square deck? Have it go down and then back in towards the pool. I can show you, like, so basically you have this right now, right? Can you see that? I'm not sure. Have that square out the deck, and then have that same exact layout of the stairs go down and in. You'll still need a rear yard variance, but you won't need a side yard variance.
It's very, like in this picture, it's so narrow between the house, you know, that's only 9 feet. You can't really walk around the table.
So let me walk over, and maybe I'm not explaining.
I think, Commissioner Creighton, I think I know what you're saying. So you're saying, take the deck out to 3 feet,
Take the deck
take
exactly.
the stairs out of the side yard, put it on that, what would that be? That would be the southwest corner of the deck.
Right.
Come down from there, and then you're saying, and the last 5 steps, make a left.
So basically exactly what you have now, except you're getting the full width of the deck like you want to the edge of the house. You're bringing it square, so you're basically having a rectangular deck, full deck in the area that you want. But now just the footprint of the stairs, you're basically taking the stairs and moving it to the rear.
Right, you're moving it, right, you're coming off the corner, the southwest
Yeah.
corner, and you're going down into the yard, and then it doesn't go all the way.
I can come over and show you, because you probably have to see it for me.
talking about the existing stairs, just moving it south.
Might be trying to wrap around the pool, we'll see.
I don't know how much they got.
We might lose space to the rear yard.
Right. But, but that doesn't allow them to expand the deck size though, right?
Well, it takes, right now, the stair is taking a bite out of the corner of the deck.
This is only 10 feet.
What he's proposing is to take
Bring
that
the
bite
whole
away,
thing out
and just
to
move the
that
stairs
corner.
south.
Altogether, yeah, bring it forward.
But what would it reduce? It would reduce about 3 feet, the width of the stairs at that corner? About 3 feet, right?
If you look at the picture,
Yeah.
it would square this off again.
So you take it in, it takes a bite out of that, just the corner.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like, if you move this out 3 feet, and then the whole stairwell out, whatever it is, you can recognize I'm moving this direction, to have it come out, the stairs are pretty much, you know, exactly where they are here. So
The issue is the support, since this is a floating stair, you need a loose support.
Yeah, you need the same stairs, yeah, the same support right there, you'll have a support in the corner of this anyway. And then you'll be taking this support, you know, this will go to the edge, you'll have a support from the corner of that angle. That's more simple.
No, that's a good solution.
Yeah. Support over there, you'll actually have more support. There you go. And you'll probably exactly where you are here,
The stairs would start.
at this space, yeah. Yeah, you'll need a bigger rear
Just
yard.
move it out to where the blue chair is. Move it in that direction where the blue,
The stairs
yeah.
would start at this.
And then you can take the square off the deck.
So it's actually, well, it wouldn't fit here though, it would have to be where they are now, just.
Yeah, right, well, you're gonna walk, you're gonna.
So get a bigger rear yard variance, but you won't need a side yard variance at all.
Take away one of the variances.
And you get rid of one of the variances, you probably satisfy your neighbor as far as being further away from him.
They wouldn't, they
And-
probably won't care about the
Right.
backyard variance. Right.
And it lands you pretty much where you're landing now. Just a thought.
Yeah, you know, your point is well taken, Commissioner. We just would have to talk to Mr. Bello just to see, does that, you know, the way you described it, it probably would work. But the back property line is a lot closer than you think. So we would just have to see.
But take a look at where the blue chair is, okay? That's approximately how much farther it's gotta come out.
Yeah, the chairs
A
are
little bit more, maybe with the
Well,
edge,
bear in mind-
edge of the pool.
Bear in mind that that deck that we're looking at with the blue chair, that's coming out, if we get our variances, 3 feet. So that deck is being enlarged in depth from 10 to 13. Then you're going to add the staircase to come down and then make a left. It may work, I don't know. I'm just,
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying? The deck is gonna
already
be-
coming a couple of feet.
this
Yeah, you're
is,
pushing the deck out farther. And
Right.
then this whole, in this picture, it's the same thing as having this picture, except pushing the deck forward toward the ocean and putting the same configuration on the new enlarged deck. Isn't that correct?
right, and your eye's better than mine, Commissioner Walton, that's for sure, given things like this. So, but just imagine you pulled the deck out 3 feet, you don't want to go in the side yard, so you're connecting the stairs to the southwest corner of the new deck,
Yes.
right? And you're going straight down and you're making the left.
Yeah.
That's why I would rely on somebody like you or Commissioner
It's
Creighton
literally just
or
connecting
George
this.
Bella to tell me, is that even, can we fit
It's
it?
just connecting this and pushing and connecting it to the front of the new enlarged
right,
deck.
that's right.
That's
And-
what I'm
That's right,
saying.
that's
And you
right.
don't have a side yard. It's worth looking at. I think it would alleviate at least 50% of the concern here.
And even if you don't have the distance to the rear property line, you could always move the landing just a couple of steps higher and bring the steps a few more steps into the pool
The
area.
deck.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
It should work.
As long as the stairs don't come closer to the pool, because, you know, the perspective on this is really like very little distance between the edge of those stairs and the pool.
Well, the stairs are
What
all,
he's proposing is not getting closer.
I don't think it'll be any closer to the pool than it is in this, because that's already in that property line location, right? Yeah, I agree.
Did you have something to say, Commissioner Leonetti?
No, I think it's a good suggestion. I mean, square the deck off, I mean, where the stair is right now, but you're also coming out a couple of feet. So you're probably gonna end up coming a bit beyond the edge of the pool. But let George figure that out.
Right.
It definitely would take it out of the side yard.
Do you have a comment?
Right now your staircase is taking a bite out of the corner of The deck.
The deck would be here and here, is that correct?
Well, you're showing the deck growing by what, 2 feet?
3 feet,
All right.
width of the stairs.
Right,
And then the stairs would come down here.
yeah.
Your stairs would probably come down on the other side of the pool.
Yeah,
That's what the impact would be.
Right.
They're saying that if it comes out-
Introduce yourself.
So hi, I'm Beth Shepa of Fort Pennsylvania Court. I'm Ed's wife. I was just, I know that they're saying that they extended the other 3 feet and then just put these stairs exactly the way they were. I'm just concerned because our architect has already gone over so many possibilities, and like Ed says, that it's gonna be so close to the pool. I thought that we came to the conclusion that this would be the safest plan is what we're presenting right now. I mean, we could go back to the drawing board, but then yet, it's, it's another time going back to the drawing
It
board.
might be inconvenient, it might take time, but it'll alleviate the problem of going into the side yard, which I think is the main issue.
Right, which it shouldn't be though.
That's,
That's our point, is
My
it
wife
should,
does bring up a good point. She said, there's an this is an expectation of policy by my neighbor that, one of the issues, just to say, one of the photographs here, this photograph is from my master bedroom deck.
in my
And
mind,
this is my neighbor's master bathroom.
in my mind, privacy is not an issue here. You guys are looking in on each other all over the place. You have 4 or 5 decks on the house already. So if we can accomplish what needs to be done without an extra variance, there's no reason that I see to grant a variance if it can be done without it.
So you're saying just grant one variance instead of 2?
Correct.
Well, the distance between houses is already so small. If there's a way to keep away from infringing on that, it would be very helpful, that's all.
So what sort of distance would we be able to?
So I think, sorry to interrupt, Jed. I think what the commissioners are both saying, right, is that, is there an alternative to what's being proposed? So the 3 of them have come up with a potential alternative. Now, George may turn around and say, you can't fit it, and here's why. We would explain that to the board, but that's what they're suggesting.
Shame George isn't here, because if he said okay right now, we could have a conditional,
So bringing the rear yard variance, like if the stairs came down almost on the property line, would be better than having the 2 variances?
Yeah, you're staying away from the side yard variance. That's
And you wouldn't have to get closer to the pool because you have that grassy area there. You may have to put a couple extra, you may have to break up some areas, but you can go all the way out. I can't speak for everybody else. I'd probably be willing to give you.
I can only go up to the pavers.
So is your property line to pavers or is your property
Correct.
line to grass?
That's correct.
property line is the paper.
yeah. I think it would fit, but
So I would need a variance in the rear deck for
You're already requesting a variance for the rear.
this size matter. That's what I'm saying, the amount of.
The size of the deck you're
I know,
asking?
I would be more inclined
Distance from
I would be
the
more
rear
inclined to
property.
vote for it close to the back line, which isn't really going to affect anybody, than if you're imposing it on the side yard. That's my own preference. So I think George can work out some details again, and in my mind, I would suggest, I don't know how the other party feels about looking at, some more plans, but if they stay out of the side yard, is that what you're trying to accomplish?
Let's
I
get them,
understand, so-
Mike,
Yes.
let's just get them on the record when we ask them.
Yeah,
you know,
understood. Yeah.
Maybe, you know what, Dennis, let's do this. Let's wrap up this part of the presentation. We can always come back to the Shepherds. And then let me hear from the opposition, because I don't want people like just talking.
Yeah,
out
I
of
agree with
turn
you, Commissioner,
To everybody,
Chairman.
so let's just take a break. Let's let the other side speak, because I'm sure there's probably no one else in favor. So I'll ask for opposition now, and then you folks can come back up if you want.
Thank you.
All right? You're welcome, sir. In opposition?
Good evening, members of the zoning board, Chairman Morelli, Robert Solomon. I represent Anne-Marie Sager, who, Gomez Sager, who lives at 6 Pennsylvania, which is immediately to the west of the subject property. A lot of points were covered in the presentation. I'll try to keep it brief because it's getting late. What happened just now has not happened. I don't have my client here today to testify under oath as to what conversations did take place or did not take place. He strikes me as being an honorable individual, very reasonable individual. He told me, listen, we want to work it out with the neighbor. When we were here on May 25th, Jim Morelli said, go work it out. There's 2 neighbors. Doesn't impact the rest of the community. So we had a conversation outside. I was part of that conversation with George Bella on May 25th, right after the hearing was adjourned. That was the last conversation I had. All of a sudden, revised plans popped up from George Bella, which were great, because now it wasn't a 3-story application, it was a 1-story application. But it wasn't a function of a conversation that I was a party to, and my client tells me it wasn't a conversation he was a party to. He had a conversation early on, but then he spoke to his daughter, who's an architect, and he told him, it still doesn't work. You're still impacting the side yard. These are small side yards. So that was, maybe one conversation was had, but before George prepared those revised plans, there was no real conversation. And then what happened was, it was kind of weird, because we show up in June, and Dennis Kelly appears to represent the applicant, and I see Dennis, I go, Dennis, good, I'm glad you're on the job, let's get together, let's talk it over. I could tell you, I haven't spoken to Dennis. I saw him in court a couple of times. I said, what does your client think? Let's get together. No conversation. I can't testify as to what my client did with the applicant, but I could testify for myself, and I know I didn't have a conversation, all right? I wanted to have this conversation because it's all about the side yard. These are 5-foot side yards. Yeah. Okay, is there privacy on the beach? There's no privacy in the West End. I get it, all those things, but if we don't have to impact the side yard, we shouldn't impact the side yard. And let's not forget who the burden of proof is on. You come before the zoning board, you're requesting a variance of our building code. You need to have, the burden's on you. You need to have some sort of hardship. There's you have to build to code, you can't get egress, ingress, whatever it might be. There has to be a showing. It can't be because, I want a bigger deck. Now, we're willing to work with them. My client, who's a builder who builds houses in Connecticut, he knows building, he's like brilliant with it. He said, I want to sit down with him, I want to solve the problem. I understand there's a seating problem. I want to solve the problem, but I don't know what problem I'm solving for unless I get to sit down with Mr. Seppa. And that was the problem, because he wanted to engage in a dialogue, and no dialogue was had. It was the George Bella proposal, which was an accommodation, and now we're in the uncomfortable position where we're opposing what was a second downscaled application. We don't want to be in that situation. We don't want to oppose anything. We want to be on the same page with this applicant. We believe that he could get the seating he needs without impacting the side yard. This gentleman who proposed the rear yard, expanding the rear yard application, I'm sure my client wouldn't oppose it. He's not here today. He's at a wedding. I know they have these destination weddings now, so he's in Europe. But my children have those. So he's not here today, but he would say that makes good sense. I'm sure he would. I can't testify to that. That's why I would say, I think where we're headed is, let's kick this can down the road. Let's get some more drawings. Let hopefully Mr. Seppa and Mr. Sega talk a little, because they are neighbors. And let's come back and see where we are. I think we'll be in a much better place than we are tonight.
I'll tell you what I would propose, and I would propose this to Mr. Kelly as well. And, you know, we've been through this, let's say, in May, and nothing's been resolved, and, you know, I don't think that you want to get flat out turned down. I don't know if you want the plan modified by us, which we're not going to really do. I think that might just behoove both sides at this point, if you could have a formal meeting before the next meeting, agree on something, perhaps, and submit it to the board. Because then we'll vote on what was submitted to the board, because I certainly would not be prepared to vote on anything tonight, obviously.
Yeah,
since
I didn't
Mr. Bella's
expect that.
involved and
Right.
so forth. So I think that we would certainly be willing to hold the case over and open, you know, even if it wasn't ready by the next month, because, you know, the next couple of weeks are busy probably for a lot of people. But I would say, you know, even if you wanted to adjourn this, personally, I would not have a problem with adjourning this even until the October meeting. You know, is it really gonna matter that they're gonna really use the deck in November, you know, the extra seating by the time it's built? So that gives you folks a month or so, at least, that we could have maybe one day, one couple of hours. I'm sure you folks will have busy schedules, because at the very least, you know, what impresses me and all the members of the board, and Mr. Solomon said it too, look, you know, it's a public beach. Anybody walking along the beach can, you know, take a set of binoculars and look into anybody's window that lives anywhere along the dunes, you know. But the bottom line is, that doesn't also give license to anybody that does live there to unnecessarily intrude on the neighbor's property. These are very expensive homes, and every little bit helps. So the bottom line is, I think that would be the best way to go. I think that it, at least, also, since they are neighbors, maybe it would be a way to promote a better feeling among them for the years to come, because nobody wants to live next door to somebody in an expensive home, you know, that worked against them, and now you gotta deal with these people, you know? So I think that that would be the best way to do it, especially if there wasn't a meeting in earnest. And I'm not doubting Mr. Sepper and the fact that, you know, they might have talked casually or whatever. I'm not doubting Mr. Solomon's client. But the bottom line is, if you guys get together and we have something, I think it'll just promote a better feeling between the two neighbors. And at the same time, they'll come up with something they can both live with. You know, 3 feet, you know, it's not a ton of room, but it's also the principle, as Mr. Solomon said, that, you know, the burden of proof is on the applicant. And even though they live in a, you know, they live in a fishbowl, basically, along a public beach, you know, 3 feet is 3 feet. So if it makes a difference.
I'd like to throw, excuse me, I'd like to throw something else out there. To the extent there's additional costs, my client's willing to, you know, put the bill to some more drawings, you know what I mean? He wants to make sure, so he already told me that.
Okay.
So in case it's, you know.
So my client doesn't have an issue with having a formal meeting? So we'll take you up on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I will say, just so the record's clear, as far, and obviously it's your decision, so I'm not encroaching on that. From my perspective, we've met our burden. There's no detriment
Okay.
here.
All right.
Having said that,
But-
I will,
I understand.
we will
you know,
schedule
Mr.
a
Kelly, and I
meeting.
get it, and I
You wanna leave
understand
it just the way it is?
Mr.
Is that what you're
Solomon's
saying?
point as well.
What's that?
You want to leave it just the way it is without having
No,
a conference?
and I think you know this, Commissioner Leonetti, first off, I have a colleague asking me, but more importantly, I have the board suggesting. I'd be stupid not to have the formal meeting.
Right.
Vote on it right now if you want.
I'm going to have the formal meeting.
Okay, good.
All right.
It's just the best possible outcome. You know, the
Yeah,
best
it
possible
is.
outcome would
And
be
because I really do
Otherwise,
believe
the
that,
board will decide and somebody's
you
gonna
know,
get it.
they've maybe shown some traction in trying to move closer together. And, you know, maybe, you know, not necessarily that it's our job to provide the nudge, but I think it wouldn't hurt in this case. It's in the interest of Long Beach, and I think it's also in the interest of, you know, of two people that live next door to each other, you know. I'm sure they both spent a lot of money on their homes, and it's, you know, I think, the fairest thing to do. So, try to do it, the case will remain open until vote.
Right.
All right?
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
You're welcome.
I submitted a letter for the record, which Anne Marie's sister was going to read, but we're going to waive that now.
All right,
But it's in the record. I have it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's in-
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks.
Case number 2979, application of 250 to 258 East Park Enterprises Incorporated and Ben Ferrante at 2700 Two Brothers Court, Oceanside, New York, for a variance in the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-106.2 mixed use prohibited, 9-113 off-street parking, for modification to variance number 2979 to expand the existing mixed use from 2 units above commercial to 3 units above commercial at 250 East Park Avenue, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 125, Lot 22, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
The applicant's present?
Dennis is representing the applicant.
Dennis is representing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Dennis G. Kelly, 120 West Park Avenue, Long Beach, New York, 11561. Here on behalf of Ben Ferrante, who is the president of the corporation that's seeking the applicant under case number 2979. You may recall back, oh, it was a year ago. A hearing was conducted before the board on an application for the basically extension of a previous use variance to allow for the building of an apartment, a 500 square foot apartment on the second level of the building in which the liquor, East Park Avenue Liquors is located at 248, 250 East Park Avenue. As a result of that hearing, first and foremost, the zoning board, particularly council, asked for me to address the concept of the expansion of an already granted use variance. I submitted case law in a written letter to Mr. Lupo relative to that point. Not long thereafter, I was also requested by the zoning board to address the issue of ingress and egress. If you may remember, we were discussing the fact that the liquor store is on the east side of that parking lot, which is actually owned by Phillips International, and they not only own that parking lot, Phillips International, I'm sorry. They not only own that parking lot, they obviously also own the one on the west side. As a result of the zoning board's request that I address the issue of ingress and egress, I then got in touch with Phillips International, wrote them a letter, and got almost a nasty letter back from Rifkin Radler telling me absolutely under no conditions whatsoever, and in fact, if we see you, doing such a thing, there will be appropriate legal action taken. Meanwhile, everybody and his brother goes through the parking lot, and I think that includes some of the easterly stores.
They use it for parking, though.
Well, they use it for parking, but there's also dumpsters there, and I'm betting that the easterly dumpster in the back is used by one of the properties that are east of that property. It's neither here nor there. Right. They said no. I communicated as much to counsel for the zoning board, and then I brought up the possibility of Mr. Ferrante purchasing the most easterly stores of that strip, right? So that would be where the old vacuum cleaner store is, right on the parking lot that runs between Immigrant Savings Bank, which I think now is Apple Savings Bank, and the easterly side of that strip. Well, we're here now because Mr. Ferrante did in fact buy the last 2 stores on the easterly side. The only storefront that he doesn't own in that strip is Diner by the Sea. And he is prepared, as well as the owner of Diner by the Sea, who owns the property, are prepared to enter into an agreement that would allow ingress and egress from the easterly parking lot, which, by the way, Mr. Ferrante now owns half of, the westerly half of that parking lot between Apple and the first storefront. To be able to access that apartment in the rear of the liquor store by simply walking down the rear of the properties to that apartment for access. So that's why we're here this evening, because I think we have a solution to the problem. Whether you want to grant it or not, obviously, is always up to your decision-making, but that's what we're here for.
So a tenant would have to walk out the back of the apartment, or the back of the building, down the stairs. Stairs, I'm assuming, are heading east.
The stairs actually head west, if I'm not mistaken,
And
right?
then
But I mean,
they
that
have
can be corrected.
Well, I just want to understand what you're proposing. And then they would have to make a U-turn to then exit that area, to come out to the front of the buildings.
Right, so
And go through, which building is it that you're proposing that they would come through, or they have to walk all the way to the?
They've got to go to the east side of the cluster of stores and walk through the back to get to it. Is
That's
that what
right.
they have to do?
But you
That's
have to
right.
get
And
to
is that a
the-
clean path for them to walk on?
It is an open path. I don't think there's anything in there, like if you go, like with Billy's Beach Cafe, there's actually like a walk-in box in that back. You know, you'd have a hard time going to and fro. You can go to and fro there. You might need to clean it up a little bit.
But they would have to walk to the parking lot where the Apple parking lot, the Apple Bank parking lot to get out.
Legally speaking, yes,
There's no other way. They're not going through any of the stores to get
that's correct.
to the north side. of the
That's
buildings.
correct.
Except for Diner by the Sea, you said?
The Diner by the Sea is the only one that Mr. Ferrante doesn't own, and they'll enter into an agreement to allow. In fact, it'd probably make it better for all the stores that they have the access out.
And a permanent easement agreement?
I think I'd do that.
What's that?
I'm sorry.
We, go ahead.
What kind of, who's going to make that kind of arrangement? Whereas the storefront, you're going to allow individuals in and out at whatever hours of the day, or night.
Well, my client will own all the property except for Diner by the Sea. So it's his property in the back. And he'll enter into an agreement with Diner by the Sea to allow for ingress and egress past their property.
So would it be a permanent easement agreement? Or
Well-
because if they sell it, would that still be in effect?
That would be an easement by
If
the
Diner
citizen.
by the Sea sells it, would that deal transfer with the new owner?
To answer your question straightforward and legally, we probably would need easements for perpetuity's sake.
Yes, you'd need
You need
easement.
it, yeah.
You'd need it. So if it's not a full easement agreement, I don't think you'd be able to do it.
What's the Diner by the Sea do in the back there? I mean,
I'm gonna let Mr.
back
Ferrante-
Restaurants have some horrendous like things piled up.
I'll let Mr. Ferrante discuss, because you're just going to get a better
I'm just
answer.
thinking about the safety aspect and insurance, which is not what we're here for, but it does. cause-
It's definitely an issue,
Yeah.
yeah.
Your name and address, please, Mr. Ferrante.
Ben Ferrante, 2700 Two Brothers Court, Oceanside, New York, 11572. Good evening, everyone. Basically, looking at 4 buildings, I own 3 of them. The one that's not owned is the diner. Prior to me, these buildings have been there, whatever, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. For decades, for sure, the diner already uses, goes now through both properties right now that I own, left and right, to get deliveries and throw out garbage, as well as Country Boy Bakery, who's my tenant, and Coffee Nut. A lot of the food places don't want the deliveries coming in through the front while customers are there, or taking out the garbage through the front. So they're already using it. I maintain everything as well as possible, cleaning hedges. There's no buildings or anything out there that blocks the access into any of the rear stores. The last
Let me ask you
building-
a question. Who owns that alleyway? Does it go with the property or?
Yes, yes.
So you already have access to the liquor store
Yes,
from the Apple Bank
correct,
parking lot,
correct.
right? Because, I mean, you can't go on the other side.
Right.
Because they tell you you can't.
Right.
So you already have access.
Yeah, the space between what was Gordon, the vacuum store, let's say,
Right.
and the bank is about 40 feet. I own 30 feet. I own the parking lot part. The bank has the drive-through part,
So the alley itself, behind all the buildings.
and that's all me, right? Let's call the properties 100 feet deep. The buildings are about 90 feet deep. So there's a 10-foot alleyway.
But it's kind of a pre-existing use that, that you have access to the back of these stores.
So you have access to the back where Diner by the Sea is?
All of the stores have a free way to go behind them. And like I said, for the most part, the food places for decades have been taking their deliveries through the back and their garbage through the back.
I
That
understand
kind of
that,
goes to
but-
my question about that path being 10 feet sounds like an adequate depth.
Yes.
Is there a separation between what these stores throw out their back door or deliver or stage in their back door versus the path that these people will use? And is that delineated in a way that they've got a safe path to get in there?
You mean the apartment?
No,
Yeah.
I think what
What's
I think
existing?
what Commissioner Alter is asking is, do any of the storefronts leave, for instance, garbage out their back door, produce out their back
Yeah,
door?
stuff.
Anything that's gonna obstruct the
Even
right
piles
of way.
of cardboard boxes, the types of things you see behind these stores.
A walk-in
sometimes.
box.
Is there a path that's separate and safe enough for people up there to get around?
There's definitely nothing affixed like a walk-in box or anything like that. I've never noticed anything, I mean, maybe for a few minutes they might leave a garbage bag there until they get to it or something like that. I can't speak that no one's ever left anything ever, there. But when I go back there and I have landscapers that work for me on all my properties, that go back there, take the leaves out and cut the hedges and everything, they seem to get access to it. I can tell you the delivery guys coming and going have no problem. The employees have no problem. And what might look, I get there's a little issue being behind the store. I wouldn't have my daughter maybe, go rent out something going behind the store. I have a guy that works for me, a handyman, who I plan on having live there. It would be like, all right, you're there. I own buildings across the street and down the block as well, and anytime I need something, you're local and you go in and out.
So each store has a door out into the back alley, are they designated egress doors?
Yeah,
Is there an exit sign
yeah.
that points to them? I mean, if that's the case, then it's already a pathway,
Yeah.
an established business.
So it's a legal egress. So if Diner by the Sea decided, I know they have kitchens back there, so they can't do this, but let's say they decided to put a fence up in their backyard and put seating in their backyard.
Right.
What legal recourse do you have?
Well,
Stop them. I mean,
I
they own the
mean,
property. Do they own it all the way to the property line?
They
And could they
definitely
put fencing
would
there if
own
they
it
wanted
to the property line. I would say, in my opinion, they need the access in and out.
Don't worry about their access. I'm
No,
saying
right.
if they don't, let's say they decide just one day, I want to put seats in the backyard, I'm going to put up a fence that goes all the way to the property line, which
Right.
they could do if they own the property.
My
And I just cut off access to
I'd
you.
be surprised if there isn't some kind of easement already.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
That's why I'm asking.
and I think council
Yeah, because
was
they need
alluding
to
to
deliver
it.
as much as
There would be potential, listen, there would be a lawsuit right away. It would be an easement by prescription or necessity. I mean, in other words, of course, everybody can walk back there. It's the only way, what if there's a fire? Nobody can go down the back, the back
I would
because.
imagine they need it as much as anybody, so.
Right. Well, at that point, I mean, I think that was the point that Mr. Ferrante was making, was that out of all of the back storefronts, that's the one that's in the middle, and that's the one, in fact, I'll tell you, the day that I was there taking photographs back last year, there was somebody, I'm going to assume from the diner, who was walking towards the Chase parking lot with a big bag of garbage to put in a dumpster in
There
the
are no
back.
photographs, are there?
There were tons
Well, I
of
can show you, if you
photographs.
guys go to Google Earth, you can look
Oh,
at it.
Google Earth,
I've
there
been
you go.
looking at it long.
I can give you these photographs. These were previously submitted it's the ones that I had taken for the.
I think Dan's point is fair, it's just not a practical,
Yeah.
it's not a practical thing to expect, but
An,
it's.
an
it's
emergency
fair.
egress is different than a personal egress every day that you need to get in and out of your apartment. Different sorts of things. Plus, you may need an easement agreement with Diner by the Sea, but you're gonna have to do one internally with yourself, because you could sell any one of those properties at any time, and you'd still need that easement for them to go through that property.
Yeah, I understand.
You just bought the properties? And
I bought the last property, I closed on it a few months ago, and the other two,
and there was nothing in there about an easement?
No, we already did we did that research last year.
Right.
Right.
I was looking for easements for any of them,
Right.
and I didn't find it. You know, and that, you know, no, practically speaking, no, probably no one's made an issue of it.
Right.
Right.
Just by practice.
Right.
It's assumed.
And I
It's
I
not
wrote
city
a
pro- it's not
very
city property or anything.
congenial, lovely, short and sweet letter to Phillips International. And I was like, I felt like writing something back, like, you gotta be kidding me.
Well, they got liability.
I know, right, I get
I
it.
don't blame them. I mean,
They don't want to say it. Meanwhile, right,
and they won't enforce it anyway.
right, exactly.
So the one thing I will point out in your pictures, by the way, that there is a fence going all the way back to the property line, at least in this one. You know, so what's to keep, say, Diner by the
That's
Sea?
a
or-
fence that runs at the back of the parking lot.
Right?
That would run, if you continued that fence to the left of that photograph, would continue, if there's a fence back there, along the property line. It doesn't interfere with any easement or anything.
I'm just saying that what would keep someone else that owns another property in that area from putting a fence up in the back, separating their property from your property, which would then knock out your egress
Well,
to that apartment?
I would expect that there probably is, that runs along the rear yard.
Yes,
Right.
which is your egress way, isn't it?
No, that we would walk along
You
that.
go the other way.
We would walk along that. Think of, you're gonna go behind that building, that wall
Right, right.
would be to your right shoulder.
So you can't come out this one because the lot's there and you can't
They
use
don't
that
want
lot,
us
right?
coming through there.
But there's a fence going to the back of the property line, right?
Go, I don't know if it does run all the way down, but if,
There-
you
there's
still
a,
have the 10 feet width. That picture might be a little deceptive, so if I stood at the corner of that building, put my left arm here, I'd still have another 5 feet to get to that fence, and that would be all the way through the back.
Right, I'm just saying, if that's the back of it, and this is on the side, you know, the side of that, going towards the back, there's nothing to stop another,
No, what you're
one
talking
of
about
Diner
is
by
the
the Sea.
fence that crosses that fence perpendicularly. That's what you would be concerned with.
Oh, so this is the rear, or this is the parking lot that's next to the Chase?
That's the parking lot next to the Chase, and that fence runs along the rear property line.
I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying, but I'm confused. Is this the walkway?
No.
I'm sorry, is this the walkway here that they'd be using to get out of the?
No. So that's the Chase parking lot. That's the one I was told by
Right.
Phillips International.
And so they'd be walking this way.
Yeah.
In this, that way, to get out, right? And there's a fence going like this. So if the next property over decides to put the same fence across their entire property.
It won't impact the right of way. Right of way will still be 10 feet wide.
So, I mean,
You're
is it
looking
up
at
to
a
us
rear
to
yard
decide
fence.
this? I mean, hey, Joe.
Am I crazy in what I'm saying?
The point
This is a
that-
10-foot, let me go over and show, I gotta show
I
it.
think,
But I
maybe you
still
see
think they
something
leave
I
it
don't.
open, you can still get around it.
So
Yeah,
is it
no,
up
but
to
that's
us to
not-
decide
There's an
whether
opening.
that is usable or not?
Maybe I can't see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this use, but if they can't get there, it's not. We're not saying that they have access just by granting.
They're gonna walk
I
to
don't
Chase.
care what Rick, I don't care what Rick and Randall said, they can say whatever they want. They're not walking to Chase.
Well,
they're not walking.
they will walk to Chase, but the point is that it's
Look
on them.
at, oh, look, everybody, everybody.
It's not on us.
It's not on us.
Everybody's so
They
creative.
do have a legal means the other way. That's what happens. It's a long walk. They're going to do the other way.
This morning. And then, now we're staying with the parents. Well, me and the girls are staying. Liz is going away tonight. From tonight till Monday. So then she'll stay with my parents Monday night. And me and Catherine are going away Saturday. So we'll be at my parents tonight and tomorrow. Jamie's staying at the house though with the dog. But it was all going great. And the demo guys cut the electric pole thing. And it's so distracting. So that's all Tony was
Get it done. I can ask.
Jamie happens to be like, go out to do something.
Right.
But it was fun, the electrician came and fixed it and stuff like that. And after all that. I don't know. So hopefully we're back on track.
The building department's
I
denial.
can't hear you.
I think we're beyond the scope of the building department's actual denial. So this appeal is based on the mixed use.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'll say it again.
Go ahead.
The zoning board of appeals has the authority to appeal the building commissioner's decision, his determination. And this determination is, and this determination that's under appeal is the mixed use and the off-street parking. With respect to means of ingress and egress, that's beyond the purview of this board at this time. So that's nothing that we don't have any say in that. If there was an issue with the means of ingress and egress, then the building department could have, and maybe should have, I can't speak for them, issued a denial based on that basis. But whether or not the ingress and the egress is permissible, that's not what we're here to decide. So we have to stay focused just on the two things that were denied and whether or not the board is okay with that.
But if we're deciding on a use, even though there's already a use on that floor, residential, right, isn't there? There's already a use, so I mean, it already exists. But to grant a use variance for that property and there's no egress, I don't see how we can approve that as a zoning board, even though you want us to say that we're only granting based on the request for use and there's already that use. How do you say yes to something there's no egress or ingress to it?
Well,
I won't say yes to it.
No, and you know what, by all means, no one has to. I mean, another option of the board, under the, in light of the fact that, now we know that Mr. Ferrante purchased everything, all the land with the exception of the diner, if I'm correct, right? This is something that we can now bring back to the building commissioner and say, hey, based on the building code, what do you think? Is there another is there another means for denial here or not?
Do you recommend we confirm that?
I do recommend that.
Yeah.
Okay, that I get.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
No,
No, I mean,
I was like, I'm not voting.
No, I understand.
I think the concern is basically too, that even though this is beyond the scope, are we allowing or not allowing something that it's gonna involve something that as a practical matter has to be addressed by the building department?
100%.
So I think we should open a discussion with the building department and not do anything on this until we know that what we're permitting, we've done with legal authority, because even though, we're voting on just this narrow condition that you're asking us to vote on, or these relief items from the code, it goes a little bit beyond our scope, and we need input from the building department to make sure that we haven't allowed something that practically can't be done.
Yeah.
As a
definitely
practical
agree.
matter.
And also, 3 out of 4 properties isn't any better than 1 out of 4 properties, as far as I'm concerned.
We're kind of in the same
what's the
position as we were
difference?
last time,
Yeah.
where ingress and egress is still an issue.
Yeah, but
It is an
I
issue, but it's not our
There's
issue.
still
It's-
one
But
that's not part
still,
of the deal.
as a practical
We-
matter.
Everybody's talking
what's
the
the-
same.
Right.
3 out of 4 is a nice try.
But
Yeah.
some significant happened here in that he bought a property in which we can get from the street to the back,
I know,
technically.
I'm not
speaking.
impressed with that.
I see that.
All of them probably say the same thing, but my point was just I'm asking for something that, like, everyone's walking in and out willy-nilly, and I'm just saying.
I mean, I would be willing to go as far as to say, when I look at on a practical level, that that attorney, Rifkin Radley, could say whatever they want, but the bottom line is, the onus is gonna be on them to police it, but what's gonna happen is, I'm pretty sure that people will probably violate the law or the agreement, I should say, and they're gonna walk up through Chase. I mean, unfortunately for them, but the point is that we have to make it so that it's,
Yeah, right,
it's
right.
legal,
I-
obviously,
I-
you know?
I think it's a good point. Let me just say this, and this could be on, Ron, okay. If the building department says it has no opinion, because that's a possibility.
Well, then we would vote on the scope of what we have to vote on.
Right, right.
Then within our scope, we would vote on what we are presented with by Mr. Ferrante and yourself, and that's what we're gonna vote on.
Right.
And they may say that, you know, and
Yeah,
at that
and
point,
listen, they also-
then we can vote on it, and then it has to play out however it plays out, because they don't have any opinion.
I think one thing, in the event that the building department doesn't have an opinion, I think one thing that would be advantageous to the board would be, unlike for example, and the people at Rifkin Radler, maybe something in writing from the diner, just stating that.
I think we can get that.
You know, that they permit people to traverse across the rear of their
Right.
property.
We may also find out from the building department that, as far as they're concerned, everybody's got an easement in the back of their buildings.
Fair enough.
You know, I don't, you know,
Yeah, I
it'd
mean-
be interesting to see what they say.
The question, you know, it was a good point by our commissioner, that basically, you know, if somebody else buys the building and they decide they don't want to make it a bakery anymore, they want a doctor's office there, they don't really need egress in the back for deliveries or anything else. The point is that theoretically, there could be a change of the new owner not wanting people stepping across his property. So there would have to be some sort of easement, because I understand Mr. Ferrante's point, you know, the bakery they need to get in and out through his buildings more than he needs to get in and out through their building. And the bottom line, the diner, I should say, not the bakery, I'm sorry about that. But the bottom line is, somebody buys that diner, I mean, things have happened. They turn it into a real estate office, or they turn it into something, you know? And all of a sudden they say, I'm gonna put a fence up there because, you know, we don't get deliveries, you know, so we don't need anything. What do we need people traipsing across our property for? Theoretically, it could happen, right? As Commissioner Creighton mentioned before, you know.
You
could
should
happen.
research if there's an existing easement. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there
We're not
isn't,
sure of
though,
that
you know?
yet, are we? Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Nassau County Clerk's records, and that's where you would find it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should.
And I did, that's where you'd find it.
To your point, sir, I'm sorry to take up any more time. I know in the past I have had inspectors go behind other buildings and issue violations and stuff to things blocking as a fire hazard, let's say.
Okay.
Anyone from getting out of the back, because obviously all these buildings are all attached. So my understanding is, no matter what, there should never be anything blocking, let alone a fence, you know what I mean? That you can't get out, you know, just in case, like you said, there's an exit sign there, there are lights there. It's a second means of egress if there's a fire or something like that. So no matter what, there should never be a fence or anything blocking, for whatever that's worth. I'm not sure.
And can I just ask legal counsel, aside from the building department, could we have the fire department weigh in?
Absolutely, we could definitely look into, see if there's any violations of the fire code. Fortunately for us, you know, our building commissioner is also, you know, heavily involved with the fire department as well. So-
Perfect.
So we'll give you, kill two birds with one stone.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Rocco, case will remain open?
Rocco, case will remain open for voting.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely leave it open for voting. Case remains open for voting, and that's the last case.
Thank you.
No items, no extensions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is now closed.
Thank you.
And I thought 7:20 tonight.
You guessed 7:20?
I jinxed us, didn't I?
Right, forget that.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't me this time.
I'll see you at the jetty at 7:30. No.
It's usually me.
My wife is gonna have something to say when I walk up too. I thought you were the other two cases.
Yeah.
Should have been here a half hour ago.
Come on, Dennis, she knows you.
It's the dogs that'll be complaining about it.
You too, and let me know, 'cause I know the tickets go down to 67.
Yes, I will definitely.
so.
I think the one thing that